Hello everyone. Let's study today the Dalit autobiography by Bama. It's called Karukku. It is a Tamil term and some people say it Karukku, but I believe the right pronunciation is Karukku. But anyway, it is only something a true Tamilian can tell us. So this is the book. It's a mirror view, but this is the novel. This is the autobiography, not the novel. And this is by Bama. The Bama is a pen name and the full name of the author is Bama Faustina Susairaj. But you don't have to study the full name, you can just call her Bama, B-A-M-A, Bama. So this is a very small autobiography, thank God. You don't have to study a lot of chapters. There are only 9 chapters and in that you will see how she was raised in a village, the struggles that she had to face in her life, being born as a Dalit, the problems that her community had with other castes in her community, and also her Christian raising as a converted Dalit, how she faced several problems, or was she betrayed by the church? We'll find out. So these are the things that she discusses in her autobiography. So like I said, there are 9 chapters and there are also translator's note, I think Bama's note first and translator's note, a couple of notes are there before the text. However, there is an author's preface also to the first edition, and then you have chapters beginning. This is the structure of the autobiography, and also at last it is followed by a postscript, I believe that is the title. Yes, a postscript is also given by Bama, and again after the postscript you have there is a glossary given for the difficult terms, the translated terms, and there is a note with about the author and the translator, a note with a title like that, and that's it. So this is the whole structure. Here in the glossary you can see so many terms with the meaning. See, Jallikattu, a sport in which bulls are baited and chased. So we know what is Jallikattu, but this is meant for the international readers, so don't worry about this. But some terms, yes, they are very helpful. See, Kanyi, we know what is Kanyi. See, the meaning is given: thin gruel rice or other grains, sometimes just the starchy water drained from cooked rice, that is Kanyi Vellam. So see, these are the terms appear in the glossary here. It's just only one page here. There are also meanings given for Nadar, Naikar, these are caste names. Then Pei means minor evil spirit or ghost. Pei pidikya. In Tamil it means something evil spirit. So these are the terms they have given here in the glossary, and let me tell you the meaning of the word Karukku. Karukku here means in Malayalam പനയുടെ ഇല, പനയുടെ ഓല, അതാണ് കാറുക്ക്. പനയുടെ ഓല എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ പുരമേയാനൊക്കെ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന ഒരു പ്രത്യേകതരം പനയുടെ ഓലയാണ്. അതായത് നമ്മൾ ഈ കരിക്ക് വാങ്ങുന്നത് പോലെ പനങ്കായ് നമ്മൾക്ക് റോഡ് സൈഡിൽ കഴിക്കാൻ കിട്ടില്ലേ, ചെറിയത്, അത് ആ പനയുടെ ഇലയാണ് കാറുക്ക് എന്ന് തമിഴ്നാട്ടിൽ പറയുന്നത്. ആ പനയ്ക്ക് തമിഴ്നാട്ടിൽ പറയുന്നത് പാൽമിറ എന്നാണ്. പാൽമിറാവിൻ എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ് അവരിങ്ങനെ പറയുന്നത് കേൾക്കാം. സോ പാൽമിറ എന്ന പന, അവർ പറയുന്ന പന, നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലുള്ള പന തന്നെ, അവരതിനെ പാൽമിറ എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. ആ പനയുടെ ഓല, അതിൻ്റെ ഓലയ്ക്കൊരു പ്രത്യേകതയുണ്ട്, ഭയങ്കര ഷാർപ്പാണ്. ഈ പേപ്പർ കട്ട് പോലെ നമ്മൾ ഈ പറമ്പിൽ കൂടി നടക്കുമ്പം പുല്ല് കൊണ്ടിട്ട് അതിൻ്റെ സൈഡ് നമ്മുടെ സ്കിന്നിലൊക്കെ ചെറിയ ചെറിയ കട്ട്സ് ഉണ്ടാവാറുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നല്ല ഷാർപ്പാണ്, രണ്ട് വശവും ഷാർപ്പാണ്. സോ ഡബിൾ എഡ്ജ് സോഡ് എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്ന പോലെയാണ് ഈ കാറുക്ക്. ഈ ഇലയ്ക്ക് പറയുന്ന പേരാണ് കാറുക്ക്. സോ the title of the autobiography Karukku is very significant here, and we will discuss that. So yes, so after this short introduction I think we can begin discussing the chapters one by one. Okay. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is not very important. You don't have anything to remember from chapter 1, but chapter 1 is all about the description of Bama's village, the village where she was born. So it is a bit of a topography given there. For example, I'll read a couple of paragraphs here, then you'll get the idea. See, our village is very beautiful, even though you don't see much by way of progress or anything like that here. I love this place for its beauty. Although it's only a small village, many different communities live here. But before I come to castes and communities, I have a lot to say about the village itself. This is how she begins the autobiography. So it's very natural. She describes the village where she grew up, and she mentions the castes and communities, but she doesn't go to the castes and communities right away, but she tells us that let me describe the village that I grew up for you. And then from the next paragraph onwards, you can see the beautiful scenery that she describes. See, the mountains range right around the village. They are lovely to look at. People say they are Western Ghats. Yes, they have names too for some of the mountain peaks. One is called Marakapuchi Malai. This mountain, if you look at it properly, it is just like a heap of paddy. So, you know, this shape. Right at the peak, perches a crag that looks exactly like a Maracal paddy measure. That's why the mountain has that name. So these kind of little anecdotes she describes in chapter 1, and that is how the chapter goes. On top of another peak there is Perumal Sami temple. So every single thing that is there in the village, things that are dear to a person's heart. It's like how we describe our village, the place where we grew up. Even though it is not very significant in the history of Kerala, we can always remember, we always find something sweet to remember, something important in the place where we grew up, right? So this is like that. It's completely subjective, and she goes on and on in these 3, 4, 5 pages, actually 6 pages. She describes the village where she grew up. See, people would light small fires of straw right there on the shore and roast the newly caught fish. It used to taste delicious. But if ever the caretaker caught sight of us, then that was it. So she remembers how they used to, you know, fry fish from someone else's pond and eat it. This is how it goes. See, once a year there was a festival there at what is that? Yeah, Muniappa Sami temple, when offerings of food and money were made. It was said that a man called Bondan from the north street of our part of the village went there once and stole the money offering. So yes, these kind of anecdotes she describes, and it doesn't have a direct connection to the story here. So don't worry, the first chapter ends with the descriptions, and we directly go to chapter 2. In chapter 2, she discusses castes and communities. She talks about, see, the first paragraph goes like this. When I was studying in the 3rd class, I hadn't yet heard people speak openly of untouchability, but I had already seen, felt, experienced and been humiliated by what it is. Then to the next page, that is page number 14 in the novel, autobiography, she says like this. She mentions the names of different castes. Here, gazing at all this, one day I crossed the street of the Pallas and came to my street, the street of the Parayas. So we know the name of her caste now. They are called the Parayas. That is, my bag slung over my shoulder. At the opposite corner, though, a threshing floor had been set up, and the Naikar watched the proceedings seated on a piece of sacking spread over a stone ledge. So Naikar is the upper caste. We get the idea. Okay, our people were hard at work driving cattle in pairs round and round to tread out the grain from the straw. The animals were muscled so that they wouldn't help themselves to the straw. So she describes the typical scene that we sometimes see in the old films. See the Janmi, the landowner making the workers, the low caste people work, and this is the same situation here. So the Naikar, that is the upper caste, and Parayas, they are the lower caste people. Actually, Parayas are the Dalit that is the term she calls the caste Dalit. We are Dalits. So Parayas are the lowest here. So they are the Dalits here. Okay. Then it goes on. Just then an elder of our street came along from the direction of the bazaar. See, here she mentions an incident. This is her first memory of seeing a caste difference in her community. She sees a man who is holding a snack which is wrapped in a leaf, banana leaf, and he is holding this snack, you know, with the thread that is tied around it. So it's like this. നമ്മളൊക്കെ ഈ എന്തെങ്കിലും സാധനം ഈ അറപ്പുള്ള സാധനമൊക്കെ തൂക്കി പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വരില്ലേ, അതുപോലെ. സോ ഒരു ലോ കാസ്റ്റ് മനുഷ്യൻ ഈ ഒരു ചായക്കടയിൽ നിന്ന് കിട്ടിയ ഒരു കടി, ഒരു ഇലയിൽ പൊതിഞ്ഞ കടി ഇങ്ങനെ തൂക്കി പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വരികയാണ്. സോ ഷീ ഈസ് ലുക്കിംഗ് കെയർഫുള്ളി, വാട്ട് ഈസ് ദിസ് ഗൈ ഡൂയിങ്? ആൻഡ് ഷീ സീസ് ദാറ്റ് ഇതിങ്ങനെ തൂക്കി പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വരുന്നത് അയാൾക്കത് അറപ്പായിട്ടല്ല, മറിച്ച് ഈ ചായക്കടയിലെ ഈ കടി ഒരു ഉയർന്ന ജാതിയിൽപ്പെട്ട ഇയാളുടെ ജന്മിക്ക് കൊടുക്കണം. അപ്പോൾ ഈ സാധനത്തിൽ പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വന്നാൽ അത് അശുദ്ധമാവും. സോ അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ ചരടിൽ ഇതിങ്ങനെ തൂക്കി പിടിച്ച് ഇത് കെട്ടിയേക്കുന്ന ചാക്കുനൂലിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ പിടിച്ചിട്ടാണ് കൊണ്ടുപോയിട്ട് ഈ ജന്മിക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോയി കൊടുക്കുന്നു. സോ ജന്മി അത് കഴിക്കുന്നു. കാരണം ഇതിങ്ങനെ പിടിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് ശുദ്ധവും വൃത്തിയില്ല, അത് അൺടച്ചബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരാൾക്കാർ തൊട്ടതായതുകൊണ്ട് കഴിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. So this is the first incident that Bama sees, and she doesn't understand why this circus is going on, and she goes home and asks her brother. Her brother is an educated young guy, and he tells her, yes, this is the real picture. So this is how she is introduced. For the first time she is introduced to this caste differences and how people why people treat them in a different way. Okay, see, the brother, he said everybody believed that Nayakars were upper caste and therefore must not touch Parayas. If they did, they would be polluted. That's why we had to carry the package by its string. So yes, that is mentioned here. Then again chapter 2 goes on about how the caste differences were when discrimination was practiced as a usual thing, how her Pati, her grandmother, used to work for Nayakar's family, and how Pati used to be very happy with whatever leftovers that they used to give her. So now Bama, when you look at it, she feels embarrassed. She is embarrassed to admit that she was more than happy to eat the leftovers from the Nayakar's household. See, Pati used to bring these food like that is nectar from gods. ദൈവങ്ങളുടെ കയ്യിൽ നിന്ന് കിട്ടിയ അമൃത് പോലെ ഈ അവരുടെ മിച്ചം വന്ന ഫുഡ് എടുത്ത് വീട്ടിൽ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് കൊച്ചുമക്കൾക്ക് വിളമ്പുമായിരുന്നു. ഇതറിയാതെയാണ് ഞാനൊക്കെ കഴിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത് എന്നോർത്ത് ബാമ, ഷീ ഈസ് എംബാരസ്ഡ് ആക്ച്വലി ടു അഡ്മിറ്റ് ദാറ്റ്. But you know, that was the reality. So she describes that, and she also mentions how her brother used to speak rudely to the upper caste people if they ask his caste. Because he was an educated man, people found it difficult to believe that he belonged to the Paraya community. So every time when somebody asked him, okay, where do you live, then he would answer them, I am a Paraya from the Cherry Street. ഞാനൊരു പറയനാണ്, ചേരി സ്ട്രീറ്റിൽ താമസിക്കുന്ന പറയനാണ്. പക്ഷെ അത് ഇങ്ങനെ റൂഡായിട്ട് പറയുമ്പോൾ അപ്പർ കാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആളുകൾക്ക് അത് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെടില്ല. ആൻഡ് യു നോ, ദേ വിൽ ഗോ ടു ആൻഡ് കംപ്ലെയിൻ ടു ദെയർ പാർട്ടി, ബിക്കോസ് പാർട്ടിക്ക് ആ ഒരു പഴയ മെൻറ്റാലിറ്റിയാണ്. ഓക്കെ, ഇവരൊക്കെ വല്ല ദൈവങ്ങളെ പോലെ ആരാധിക്കേണ്ടവരാണ്, അങ്ങനെ ഒരു അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡിംഗ് ആണ്. സോ ദേ വിൽ ഗോ ആൻഡ് കംപ്ലെയിൻ ടു പാർട്ടി ആൻഡ് ഷീ വിൽ കം ഹോം ആൻഡ് ഗിവ് ദം ഇയർഫുൾ. സോ ദിസ് ഈസ് ദ regular scene here. And also here she describes another painful incident that she had to face when she was in school, how she was accused of stealing a coconut that she didn't steal actually. It was she was climbing this coconut tree as part of their game, and a coconut, an unripened coconut, you know, machinga, it fell down. And the coconut is a big deal. I don't know, maybe for that community coconut was a big deal. And the next day assembly, her name was called out by the headmaster, and she was accused of stealing the coconut. And he says, you have shown us your true nature as a paraya. നിൻ്റെ ജാതിയുടെ സ്വഭാവം നീ കാണിച്ചു, നീ തേങ്ങ മോഷ്ടിച്ചു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് ഇവളെ സ്കൂളിന് പുറത്താക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. And then Bama goes and begs to the manager of the school who is a priest, to get a letter from the priest, a recommendation letter to admit her back in the school. So this is a painful experience that Bama mentions in chapter 2. So that those are the things that we read in chapter 2. I think that's it. There is nothing much to talk about. Yes, now we go to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about the inter-caste problems that she faces. Not she faces, her community faces in that village. See, there is this incident, there is an argument over property. It's a symmetry actually between the two castes. One is Chaliyar and one is Paraya. So between Chaliyar and Parayas there is an argument, there is a problem going on. Whose property is, to which community the symmetry of the village belongs to. See, Parayas here, her community is converted Christians, right? So they bury their dead people. So we have other communities. See, Chaliyars, they are also converted probably. So they also want to bury the people here. So there is an argument going on whose is the symmetry. So this is a problem, and she mentions how it becomes a huge issue in her village, and how men were arrested by the police, and how the police treats them. Some people are even dead. Police they catch these men, they hit them, and some men die in custody. And wives of the Paraya community, they hide their husbands when the police come to search for these men. These women, they hide their husbands. There is an incident that women somehow, when the police come, some women hide their men in the room, and then women wait outside, and the police comes. These women would say, oh, somebody is about to deliver a baby, labor pain, so that's why we are waiting here, so please don't go inside. So ഒരു സ്ത്രീ അവിടെ പ്രസവിക്കാൻ കിടപ്പുണ്ട് എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുമ്പം പോലീസ് ആ റൂമിലേക്ക് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പോവില്ല. ആൻഡ് ദെൻ സം വിമൻ വുഡ് ഡ്രസ് അപ്പ് ദെയർ മെൻ ഇൻ സാരി, ആൻഡ് they will just transport these men. അപ്പോൾ in the disguise of a woman they can just move around, the police would not recognize. So that kind of measures were taken to save their men from these cruel police officers. And police officers, they are not honest here, and they take bribes and they hit these men, and it's not fair either. So she describes this incident here in chapter 3. So yes, that is not very important for you, but somehow she mentions here, and the whole chapter is about this incident. And also an interesting thing is that when this community was facing this legal problem, the problem from the police, the church doesn't do anything to help them. That is what I think Bama wants to tell us here. When the community was facing this struggle, it is a communal issue, and it is over a symmetry. The church is supposed to help them, the church is supposed to interfere, but here the church doesn't do anything. Instead, the priest, the local priest, in fact betrays them, and he doesn't even help, and he betrays them. So this is what she likes to say in this chapter. If I read out any important paragraphs here, there is nothing to read out here, but yeah, towards the end you can see that the problem is finally solved. Little by little we began to forget the fighting over the symmetry. The Paraya community and the Chaliyar community began to act towards each other in a normal, friendly way. And finally there was a court case, and Paraya community wins the case. Finally the symmetry is declared as a property of the Paraya community. So that is the incident mentioned here. And let's go to chapter 4. Chapter 4 is all about the hard work, the labor this Paraya community they have to do in order to survive. And it is, I would say, comparatively the most painful chapter in this autobiography to read, because the way these people are exploited by the upper caste just because they belong to the untouchable caste. The manual labor that the others exploit from this community, it's extremely cruel. See, children, they don't even have childhood. immediately, as soon as they are able to do some work, they are forced to do the work in the field to help their adults to get the work done. And what are the wages? Wages are very, very low, and that is how she describes here. See, the chapter starts like this. From the time I was a small child, I saw people working hard. I grew up amongst such people. At home, my mother and my grandmother labored from sunrise to sunset without any rest. And to this day, in my village, both men and women can survive only through hard work and incessant labor. This is how the chapter begins. So you know the entire mood of the chapter. And there is some incident where sometimes I think one day her mother vomits blood because of the overwork, but you know, they don't go to the hospital, they just go to work next day as if nothing happens. So this is the explanation. Yes, in those days my mother too used to go collecting firewood. On one occasion she brought home a bundle of firewood, leaned it against the wall and then began vomiting vast gobs of blood. See, it goes. Then some other paragraphs I can read. See, they never received a payment that was appropriate to their labor. And another thing, even if they did the same work, men received one wage, women another. So there is a gender pay gap also she mentions here. This is a community that was born to work, and however hard they toil, it is the same kur every day. Kur is their breakfast item. I believe this is a Tamil term, kur, and it is not given in the glossary. എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത് കൂഴ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നമ്മളൊക്കെ പണ്ടുള്ളവർക്ക് രാവിലെ ഈ പുഴുക്ക് കഴിക്കുമായിരുന്നു. എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ കപ്പയോ മറ്റു കിഴങ്ങുകളൊക്കെ ഇട്ടിട്ട് പുഴുക്കുണ്ടാക്കി കഴിക്കും. കാരണം അരിക്കൊക്കെ അന്ന് നല്ല വിലയായിരുന്നു, അരി അങ്ങനെ കിട്ടാനും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല, അവനവൻ്റെ കണ്ടത്തിലുണ്ടായെങ്കിലേ ഉള്ളൂ. സോ this kur was their main food, their staple food, the same broken grain gruel, the same watery dried fish curry. So രാവിലെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു പുഴുക്കും വെള്ളം പോലെ ചാറുള്ള ഉണക്കമീൻ്റെ ഒരു കറി, ഇതൊക്കെയാണ് ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഫുഡ്. സോ ദർ ഇസ് എ ലാക്ക് ഓഫ് ന്യൂട്രീഷൻ ഓൾസോ. ഓവർ വർക്ക്, no nutritious food. So you should understand how their bodies are built from the childhood itself. It seems they never ever reflect upon their own terrible state of affairs. But do they have any time to think? ഞങ്ങളുടെ അവസ്ഥ ഇങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് ചിന്തിച്ച് നിൽക്കാൻ പോലുള്ള സമയം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. എന്നാ പറയണ്ടേ, ഉദിക്കുന്നത് തൊട്ട് അസ്തമയം വരെ പണിയെടുത്താൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും നമുക്ക് വയറ്റിലേക്ക് കഴിക്കാനുള്ളൂ എന്നൊരവസ്ഥയാണ്. ഉറങ്ങുമ്പോൾ മാത്രമാണ് കയ്യും കാലും അനങ്ങാതെ കിടന്ന് വിശ്രമിക്കാൻ പറ്റുക എന്നാണ് ബാമ പറയുന്നത്. സി, for it's only when they fall asleep at night that their arms and legs are still. Otherwise, they're always working for someone else for these cheap wages. So this is how the chapter goes, and it is a very painful chapter to read. So that is all you should remember about this chapter: the work, the exploitation, and how even the children are thrown to the fields to work. And the stolen childhood. This is the important things that you should remember from chapter 4.